Hey, Richard.
Yeah.
Best case scenario.
Yeah.
What do you wish for the...
Well, I'm really hoping this will establish me as a child prodigy. You know, as a enfant terrible. You know, because I've wanted to be one for about 65 years now, and this is maybe my last chance to become a really serious, make a splash as a child star.
Double vinyl album.
That would be cool.
Yeah, if we can sell 30 copies.
30 million copies?
30 million copies, yep, 30 copies. Somewhere a figure between those two.
I'd like to be the best new Millennium Beatniks type band in Hamilton.
I'd like to kick an Auckland New Millennium Beatniks type band's ass.
Yeah.
World tour.
Maybe somebody big time will get a hold of the video because of the skill of the filmmakers, and catapult me to the point where the band is actually doing 2-week cruises on cruise ships.
You would have to pay me a large sum of money. Of course.
That would be great. I'd love that. As long as I wasn't in the engine room.
No, I don't like boats or flying. No.
But we get to travel, because I do like travelling. I'd quite like to.
I only like day trips.
I'd have to take some plants with me though.
Definitely. Yes, I think the cruise ship audience would be Richard's ideal target audience. You know, just hit those cruises with the truth.
It depends what kind of cruise ship it is and where it's going. I think there are cruise ships in the world on which they would be very appropriate. The sort of cruise ships that, you know, go to Syria or the outer part of Antarctica, you know, one-way trips, basically.
You know, they say they're germ factories, but I've also been told that there's a lot of easy sex to be had on cruise ships, and that's important to me.
I would just go along for the cruise, and the groupies would just have to, you know, the groupies, sorry, but, you know, go see Richard. Go see the guy with the microphone.
That never happened, man. That never happened. They just made
Didn't happen.
They made that shit up. They made that shit up.
Yeah, I'm trying to erase that image from my mind.
How did I come to join the band? I don't know. How did I come to join the band? Shit, I don't remember.
I think Martin was unavailable one time, and I think someone that knows Richard knew that I played double bass as well, so they called me to come play double bass with Richard one night at the Biddy Mulligan's. That was probably about 3 years ago, something like that, about 3 years ago.
After much resistance, I didn't want to go to any rehearsals or have to worry about pre-performance tension too much, so Richard said I can just show up, play whatever. They had it all ready for me, so I just get to walk on stage and it's there ready, and if I don't like the poem, the content in the poem, I'll just walk off, just leave.
Okay.
And they're cool with that. What about you?
I think I was born a beatnik.
Damn, girl.
No, it just happened.
I was invited to play for one of their gigs. That was in the local Garden Square, protesting about the Trans-Pacific Partnership thing. And I thought, I'm opposed to that. And if I can support it, then yeah, let's do it. So I thought it was just going to be a one-off, but I somehow got seconded and have done quite a few gigs and enjoyed them.
Actually, I saw them playing at Droid's party, and I was like, oh, I'd love to jam with you guys. And I knew Chelsea, and I knew Martin kind of. And Richard had this huge spiel about how Martin's really picky. And he was like, oh, no, he only likes like brilliant musicians. Like, I like his stuff, but I have to talk to him, and it had this huge thing about it. And then like a little while later, I got a Facebook message, and he was like, oh, Martin was actually really, really overexcited to play with you. And I was like, yes. So apparently my style works.
Yeah.
Which is basically weird noises on the violin. So.
And Martin is the most fun person to play music with in the entire world ever.
Oh, I came to New Zealand in '88. Well, my first thing was I had to get the fuck out of the United States because I really hate the United States, and I hated living there, and I hated the culture and the dominant culture. I mean, I had some friends and all that, but I hated the dominant culture, and I hated all the bullshit and all the redneck crap, and I didn't feel like they had this thing back then, about America, love it or leave it, Well, I didn't love it, so I left it, and this is before Google, so I actually had to do some work to research where I wanted to go to. The first choice was to leave Texas, and the next choice was where. And I did the research, and New Zealand seemed to be by the process of elimination, English speaking, because I was too old and my Spanish wasn't good enough. So English speaking, and Canada's too cold. And I went to Jamaica, but I didn't want to be somebody with a middle class income in a place where so many people are so fucking poor, And Australia struck me as being like too much like fucking Texas. And so New Zealand was sort of like process of elimination, what was left.
When did the band get together?
It wasn't, a band hasn't got together. About 5 or 6 years ago, it struck me that, well, see, I always wanted to be a beatnik when I grew up. That's why the name of the group, Beatniks, And back when I was wanting to be a beatnik was back when I was 10, 11, 12 years old,
What's a beatnik?
Well, that was a member of the Beat generation. That preceded the hippies. Had a completely different ethos. And it's sort of like, in this sort of situation, it'd take too long to explain it, but you can Google it, I guess, But I wanted to be a beatnik, which was like, a countercultural, non-conformist, but it was before the hippies. The beatniks more wore that dark, somber clothes and a bad attitude rather than, oh, wow, sunshine and light, peace and love. Beatniks were more like, oh, fuck. So and there was pictures of beatniks. They always wore berets, and they played bongo drums,
Now, Jack, Mr. Kerouac, what I want to ask is this. To what extent do you believe that the Beat generation is related to the hippies?
Oh,
what
the
respect?
hippies are good kids. They're better than the Beat. The Beats, see, Ginsberg and I, and, wow, Ginsberg, boy. We're all in our 40s, and we started this, and the kids took it up and everything. But a lot of hoodlums, and communists jumped on our backs.
I discovered when I was 14, when I got my beret, that I'm so badly allergic to wool that I couldn't wear a fucking beret, but I decided, well, maybe you don't really need a beret, So, anyhow, they were always reading their their beatnik poetry to somebody playing a bongo drum. Well, I was shit at the bongo drum too, so I couldn't wear a beret and I couldn't play a bongo drum. But when I started writing stuff again and performing stuff again in venues that they call poetry, that usually mostly aren't, it struck me that if I'm going to be a beatnik, I need somebody playing the bongo drums with me. But I didn't know anybody who played the bongo drums, so I started suggesting it to Martin that he play his double bass with me. And he thought that was a good idea, so he started playing the double bass. And then gradually, that was about 5 or 6 years ago, I guess. And then gradually, that'd be about like 2010, 2011, somewhere in there. And gradually, over time, more people have joined up. It's changed. For a while there, we had a cello, and we had someone who played homemade guitar, and we had various people come and go. But the current group seems to be, ever since Lot joined in, and I mean, he's pretty much committed to the group. And Chris seems to be pretty much to the group. I mean, they both play in a lot of other bands too, but they like playing with this for some fucking reason, I don't know. And Lot and Chris, and Chelsea's really keen, although she's got a kid, she goes to school, she has a job, so that limits her participation. And Michaela, for some reason, she thinks it's really cool. I mean, it's sort of cool with Michaela because the rest of us, here I am, pushing 70 with my gray beard. And there's Martin, who may be 15 years younger than me, but he looks like he could be my father with his long white beard, And there's Lot with his goatee that's white and about this long, There's all these old beatniks, But then there's Michaela, this pixie who's about 1/3 my age. She's like 23, And how much is that? Oh, she's a kick-ass violin player. She really adds a lot to the band. So yeah, I think that makes a good visual contrast.
The way we do the music is listen to the words. What are these poems about? If you can get some kind of idea, a mood, just make some notes. This one's angry. This one's about capitalism. This one's about whatever. This one's kind of dark. Maybe this one might be.
Well, for me, it's very simple. I would prefer not to even think about it until it's happening. It's just something that happens as it's happening. He's always writing new material. I've most of the time never heard it until he's on stage talking about it, or it's coming out of his mouth, and the performers, the musical performers, are reacting to it, and that's just what keeps it fresh, really, for me. Fresh and fun and challenging.
Very spontaneous.
It's like an improv soundtrack. It just works. Sometimes if I hate it, you can kind of fuck with his words if you want, and that's what's fun. Hey.
Yeah, I like the chaos.
Okay, so Richard starts talking. At the first couple of words he says, we kind of get a mood and just start playing whatever happens, and try to fit in with the flavour of the moment, I guess. I'm listening to Richard, but I'm trying to listen to, we basically get a soup of sound going, and I just try to add a flavour to that soup. So there's some premeditation, but mostly just reacting with your little flavour to whatever's going on. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's totally wrong.
I'm used to hanging out with smelly old men.
Chelsea's good at managing them, actually. She's got the style.
I don't do anything that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
And Richard's cool with that. He says he likes my shit. So, if I just want to turn up and just hang out and be grumpy and spaz out on the guitar and smash things, he kind of, I think that's what he wants from me.
You fit right in when you do that, though, don't you?
I don't know.
The grumpy old men.
Oh yeah.
I've got the team.
Okay. For me, it was kind of tricky because I knew it was always going to be, if anyone ever heard what the words were, it was going to be controversial. If there were people listening, this is potentially offensive to people. But at the same time, we'd actually gone through the set probably 2 or 3 times, like just not playing any music, but I knew the poems, and the particular one in question, yeah.
Oh, for me, no. I think that if someone is coming out on an evening to hear some music, especially some improvised music to poetry, you should be expecting anything, really.
I had a problem with the vagina fluid poem.
I don't think I've heard that one.
And I told him that I didn't want him to perform. I said I wouldn't perform that, and I didn't want him to do that song, and he told me not to be a fucking bully. But that's about the biggest fight that Richard and I have had, so I just can't let it go. And then he still did play that song, but I just walked off the stage and then came back on afterwards.
No, I can actually say I have never ever had any complaints about the content of what they do. No, strictly complaints about how difficult they are to manage.
There's no theme that you might say, but there's something that it all has in common, in that I always try to tell some truth. I like committed to telling the truth, whatever it is I'm going after.
I don't know what truth is, but he's being straight up when he says this is his truth. So, yeah.
I think everyone has their own truth. I think that's, yeah.
The truth is not a lie.
That's accurate.
I don't know, I don't want to answer that question.
Whatever Richard Selinkoff is saying at the time, you know, whatever he's feeling, it's pretty much, yeah, actually, yeah, it's a funny one. You know, he's an opinionated cat, and good on him.
I'm like an old has-been opponent heavyweight who comes in chin first, slugging at the body. You know, that sort of truth. You know, it's the truth of the body puncher.
Well, there was that time that they played at a solstice party at my house, actually. As usual, I didn't invite them. They demanded to be on the schedule. And as usual, I allowed this. However, I believe Richard was late. They were supposed to be the first act. They were on in the lounge. Can't remember exactly what happened in terms of trying to get them there. Martin was there because it was at Martin's house. But he turned up eventually, and he was quite drunk. Quite drunk, actually. But the sort of drunk that was sort of ideal for the circumstances, because somehow, well, first of all, physically, every time he fell over, it didn't matter because he fell into the couch and kind of, well, you know, he didn't land up flat on his back. We could get him back up on his feet fairly easily. In fact, a couple of times he even got himself up by himself. But that actually worked. I mean, it kind of fitted with the general aesthetic, and you know, the more it happened, the more the room filled up. There were other rooms, other things going on at the party, but as the word got on that there was this guy in the lounge and he was telling the truth and falling over, the better it was.
What's a quaggy doodle?
Oh, well, that...
This is Quacky Doodle. Only only seen in paintings. Frozen in time, Quacky Doodle doesn't rest, perpetually playing out the role of being continuously and simultaneously both dangerous and endangered, and threatening and threatened. Some may consider Quacky Doodle to be sacred, despite being imaginary, sort of like God. No need to pray for Quacky Doodle, however, it's culturally appropriate to sacrifice a virgin. Any present? Ponytails. I cut off my last ponytail about a dozen years ago. In 2K3, I think it was. So that part of our recent national cause célèbre didn't make me feel threatened at all. What did strike me, and I do mean strike me, with unresolved outrage deep down in my soul, was the part about horsing around. Just horsing around. A bit of banter. These are variations on the mantra of self-justification spewed out by bullies everywhere, with unconvincing displays of injured innocence with just a touch of nobility. I had enormous fun using my superior power to torment you, you lesser being. Which makes it okay, because, well, I had so much fun. What's the matter? Can't you take a bit of fooling around? A bit of teasing? Can't you take a joke? Sheesh. It doesn't matter if it was only fun for the bully and not for his or her victim, because the bully matters and the victim doesn't. Bullies are the source of all evil on earth. This is personal. A note to my sibling. You've never conceived of me, brother, on an interactive level as anything other than a thing for you to have a jolly time tormenting. It doesn't matter to me that you can justify it to yourself as just brotherly kidding around, because it wasn't. It doesn't matter to me that it's the result of conditioning that you acquired by following the cues of our inhuman horror of a mother that she gave you as a birthright. Our radically different upbringings in the same house mean that I see the way we were and are in a manner that your self-centered, malicious mind can't imagine. As you can see, I took the John Key thing real personal. A failure of imagination. I saw a screenshot on Facebook of a Twitter message that someone had sent to a sapphic singer saying, quote, I stopped listening to your music when I found out, lowercase u, were a Lebanese. God wanted man with woman. Seeking empathy, I tried to imagine what it would be like to be that diminutive, but it was beyond me. Anyhow, I don't see what's wrong with being Lebanese. Hazard Belmoth was a pretty good league player. He was Lebanese. Okay, just a forwarding. When I went through this earlier, both Chris and Martin gave me weird looks when I was finished with it. And I have to tell you that it means absolutely nothing. It's something I jotted down when I woke up from a dream. So it's just silly nonsense. Don't try to read any meaning into it, because do it in.
No vagina talk.
No. Gina.
Who has that China?
That's Gina, not Johnny. She was tall and blonde and cute and sweet, which fooled shallow people into thinking she was shallow too. She fell easily against her will for an older bloke who flirted with her, as he did with everyone, never for a moment considering that anybody would take him seriously. Her childhood sweetheart scattered her ashes on the floor of his terrarium, where his lizards and newts frolicked, if that is the word, upon and over and around them. You know anybody who makes meaning out of dreams? Okay. Deterrence. Corporal punishment is supposed to be a deterrent to make children and adolescents think twice about misbehaving due to the fear of the pain that adults in authority can consequently inflict on them with a cane or a paddle or some similar weapon. Yet my experience as a teacher in schools with corporate punishment policies was that the same kids received administrative wallopings over and over again, undeterred. Capital punishment is supposed to be a deterrent to make people think twice before committing murder or other violations of the law of those jurisdictions that have it on the books, due to the fear of not all that sudden death. If this were truly so, then those places should never have to use it. But they do, usually often. As the GP took my blood pressure and listened to my thumper, I compared how young my mind felt with how old my body felt. Then I turned my head to the right and saw a small mirror on the wall. The reflection of my countenance filled the glass, and I reflected upon my appearance. That sealed it. It was 2-1 in favor of old. Dream magic. Air like dream magic floats the pale twilight. Cool winds make people think about gods. I stay in my unit where the air is more consistent and my loneliness seems less acute but more hard. You said that you'd see me when I needed that, and also knew, as you did too, that you were most unlikely to return. Despite the dream magic, I know that the gods are people's creations, like flower arrangements and marzipan frosted cakes, but rarely so benign. The night's darkness softly closes over the innocence of dusk, caressing daylight's hardness hiding banalities, the raucousness from elsewhere in the suburban city stirs up the spirits in their godlike nastiness, then subsides into the air like dream magic. Moment by moment. Death apparently doesn't want me for the moment, no matter what I want, but even so, I stumble on without it. Gray. I saw an article about how gray hair has come into fashion, or has become hot, as the article put it. And I remembered one of the many women with whom I have failed in love, who had prematurely gray hair. She went through an impressive variety of brands and colors of hair dyes. When I mentioned that, I thought she'd look even better if she let her hair grow out into its natural gray. She brushed this opinion off as irrelevant, thereby adding herself in yet one more way to that seemingly endless stream of people, including my more or less lovers, who have casually flaunted their disdain and disregard for my irrelevance. When I filed for divorce, the processioners, as part of the identification process, asked for her hair color. I couldn't tell them. Okay, now we're getting into some real serious stuff here. Symbolic headgear. When the Pope was in the Middle East, I saw TV images, on mute of course, of a papally attended interfaith service in Jerusalem or somewhere near that, I guess. And it struck me that no matter which monotheistic religion or denomination they represented, Catholic, Islam, Judaism, Orthodoxy, and so on, all the clergy present were men wearing funny-looking hats of one sort or another. Outlandish, non-functional headgears clearly have a significant mana in traditionally organized monotheism, although I fail to divine their spiritual significance myself. Except, of course, the Pastafarian colander. What's that? This is the traditional headgear of the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, also known as the Pastafarians. And those of us who truly believe in the Flying Spaghetti Monster, and of course with the significance of its meatballs, eyes, well, some other time. Google it. It's there. What you got cooking? She rode in here on the sleeping bag of an immigrant emu, wearing a hijab scarf and a string bikini, scattering confetti made from shredded documents of vital importance to somebody who didn't matter. I could smell her body, the real aroma and the flowery bath products, more clearly than my own, despite my determined consumption of van ordinaire. Her purpose was obscure to me. Did she intend to crumble my barriers? Then why the outlandish transport and uncoordinated scarf colander. I put mushrooms in the pan with a hint of garlic and cooked them down till it was time to add soy milk and wholemeal flour. Take the pan off the heat before stirring it all in the sauce. Bow tie pasta were gurgling in the back burner. Dapper. As she stood beside me whilst I did this, I took the opportunity to grope her globular axe. She informed me matter-of-factly that she'd been waiting all her life for someone who didn't put her on a pedestal and would casually grope her ass in the kitchen. What a man's gotta do. I don't know why I was so spaced out that morning, but I left for the dog exercise park on a day characterized by a disturbed westerly flow, having forgotten to take my umbrella with me. Although the sky was blue though when we left the car, I knew that our chances of a dry, full-length ramble were slim. And sure enough, a half an hour later, as we were crossing the lawn toward the stick tree, I felt a gust of wind at my back, turned and saw a mass of black clouds approaching rapidly from the southwest. Without hesitation, I started striding briskly back toward the car, directly, the fox terrier following. It started splitting as I descended the ramp past the boathouse, and then began pissing down for real after I'd strode maybe 20 meters along the riverside footpath. I ran through the rain with a clumsy, thudding, lumbering gait the last 80 meters or so, to the squabbling landing car park at the shelter of my funky old Ford. It was the first time I'd run in years. Obvious strategy. It was mid-afternoon in mid-spring. The weather outside was pleasant, and my front door was open. The first fly of the season zipped in, but my pyrethrum spray convinced it to depart. I was less than halfway through my first bottle of wine for the day when my loneliness overtook me, making me shudder and sweat. The obvious strategy for addressing this involved concentration upon drinking, not thinking. Thank you.